fire, fire. My heart desire left me higher, higher. Your vibe is just my desire. Lady, love that is the bottom line.
Club Kings. Club Kings. Ill. Club Kings.
Darling, you dahine. I was wondering, Beku kesi ifefe. What is on your mind? I'm just waiting for you to tell me, baby. Heal my bed, so I know I'm on your mind. Bell to microphone, where do we put? Get one more in one more time. I've been waiting for your touch so very much that I know when you're around me. The way you make me feel, the way your love is real. Oh no, no, my tiny, me, oh me, oh my tiny. Ooh, he touched my bed, so I know that I got you, baby. Oh, and now. This is the day I found you. Man, I do it my best over. I'll love you over and over. I'm not going anywhere. Won't you bring down this confusion? And come and give me a solution. So baby, don't you rock my boat to try to me over. 'Cause it's gonna take some time to try and recover. Try to me over. give you all that I am. So honey, don't leave me lonely with this heart in my hand. Won't you bring down this confusion? And come and give me a solution. So baby, don't you rock my boat to try to tip me over. 'Cause it's gonna take some time to try and recover. Well, I know love will help us through it all. So baby, don't you rock my boat to try to tip me over. Won't you bring down this confusion? And come and give me a solution. So baby, don't you rock my boat to try to tip me over. 'Cause it's gonna take some time to try and recover. Well, I know love will help us through it all. So baby, don't you rock my boat to try to over. Oh, you're rocking it, 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 rocking it,
Club Kings.
I got to run. Kingdom come and a better way of life. A better day. Since who won't come see the rest feel so unkind. And oh, my baby's on my mind. And oh, blue bleeds through their minds. She's a monster and an angel. I wanna love her, but I cannot lie. Doctor, she was a blue-eyed Marty. She stole my bloodline. I never knew blonde head, blue-eyed Marty the whole time. Oh no, nobody knows. No, nobody knows. That girl, that pretty little girl, she done hung me out to dry. Shot me down in the light of day. Shot me down for the right of way. Slowly changing my DNA. My brown done turned to blue. Valentina, you are my angel. I wanna love her, but I cannot lie. Doctor, she was a blue-eyed Marty. She stole my bloodline. See, I never knew blonde head, blue-eyed Marty the whole time.
아니? Whiti ora ki runga, whiti ora ki raro, whiti ora ki runga I te pae e. He pae ngā rangatira, he pae ngā kōrero, he pae ngā wānanga e. Turu turu o whiti wakamaua kia tīna. Haumie, hui e I. Tēnā tātou e te ti e te tā. Tātou kua hoki, pūnga ngana mai ki tā tātou kaupapa I tēnei ata. I'm sure you're feeling energized, motivated, and amped for the second day of Involve. Everybody say Involve. I need a little bit of a hip-hop vibe on that, you know. Involve. Yes, I like it.
Popongi mania, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, everyone. Please turn to your neighbor and just share with them one awesome takeaway from yesterday, if you will.
All right. This is my number one message for today, or question and message. Did you get involved yesterday? Yes. Are you involved with people? Are we going to get involved today? Yes. All right. I'm going to pick on this guy. Is that all right? Can we pick on you? What did your conversation entail? Come and share with the crew.
Kia ora tātou, ko Vincent Nathan tōku ingoa no te tai toke rau ahau. I just need to give it up to Pacifica Presentations yesterday.
Hey.
The vibe in that whale was off the chain. Not a dry eye in the house. We were deeply moved by the singing, by the message that was sent out to the youth work community. And the message is that as youth workers, we are enough for our kids. And I just want to leave you with that. Youth workers, you're enough. Hit up the person next to you. Tell them, you're enough. Love you.
You're enough, Daisy. Oh, can we have one clap for this brother? Hey. Can you also show us your big ticky? Look at his big ticky. What are you laughing at?
So yeah, this this guy is called Papa Matua. Some of you have seen me wearing a hay tiki yesterday as well. His name was Kaipiki Maunga, the mountain climber. Moa, MOA.toys on Instagram. Get yourself a piece. You're going to rock it out.
All right, tēnā koe kara.
And please go see our $1 Million Minion. We'll have a wee prize for you sharing. Ngā mihi e hoa. We're going to pose one more question to your neighbour next to you. The wonderful Albert Wendt talks about the va, the space between, the space that relates and connects. The wonderful Carlo Mila talks about this quantum energy space between us. Our question to you is, what are you looking forward to in the va today? What energy might you be bringing in our Involve va? Please share with your neighbour for a few seconds.
Okay. I'm going to pick on a friend. I'm staring at my friend, so this is my warning for her. Because we're going to have a wahine have a little bit of a kōrero. Are we ready? Tell us a little bit about your conversation, my friend.
ADHD is a thing. Be honest. Kind of like zoned out a little bit. So it would be the energy between us is whatever we make it. All right, what you take in is what you're going to get back.
Tēnā koe. Beautiful. Love the honesty. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Uso. I'm now going to invite our wonderful rangatahi performance who's going to mawhana the stage for us. He was the previous head boy of Shirley Boys High School, whakapapas as Samoan. Ngāti Pākehā, let's give it up for Cooper Gibbs. Whamuina.
Sorry guys, I got tangled up. Kia ora everybody, hope we're having a wonderful morning. My name is Cooper, it's a pleasure to be here and sing for you guys. I've just got a couple of songs, so I hope you all enjoy. Thank you. I'm stuck in a danger zone, the king of the lonely throne, and the line between my love and hate grows still. Nobody worth trusting in. I'm flying with hollow wings. I just hope I don't burn up against the sun. No, have I come this far to tell you that I'm done? Feels like it won't change. Feels like it would change, and it's got a hold on me. Feels like it won't change. Told you I've been waiting on blue skies. I don't even know myself. I feel like I'm somebody else. And the line between my love and hate grows still. To get to that smiley boy before he heard all the noise. I just hope I don't burn up against the sun. No, have I come this far to tell you that I'm done? Feels like it won't change yet, no. Feels like it would change, and it's got a hold on me. Feels like it would no change. Told you I've been waiting on blue skies. Told you I've been waiting on blue skies. Thank you. I just got one more song for you guys. Man, this is such a big room. I know exactly where we're heading. Science won't give God any credit. The church says as long as the prophet said it, it's good enough for the church to be fed it. There's 4,000 different interpretations. We disagree from Genesis to Revelation. We need to get to the core of the situation and stop bitching about same-sex relation. The chapel says it's non-profit, except if the prophet wants a Benz, he goes and cops it. Growing up, wealth was never topic, no. My daddy never had bread up in his pocket, no. My tax dollars only teach abstinence. Except half the girls I grew up with got pregnant. Instead of scholarships, they got carriages. Instead of chasing the dreams, they're chasing marriages. And Martin Luther King had the vision. So this must be a blind generation. See, we become a nation manipulated by the congregation. And we will never find racial unity unless we find equal opportunity. 'Cause I was never asked for immunity, 'cause I was born and raised in a Caucasian community. The less fortunate are robbed with desire for these poisons. Yo, myth cracking heroin. We are the kings of the underprivileged kingdom. So I should be the last to speak. I should be the last to speak. I should be the last to speak. Well, I should be the last to. Well, I should be the last to. I should be the last to speak. I should be the last to speak. I should be the last to speak. Well, I should be the last to. Well, I should be the last to speak. Thank you very, very much. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Let's give it up one more time for Cooper Gibbs Famuina. Cooper, can you let us know where we can find you on socials?
Oh yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Coop from Wina Music. So have a look. Thank you.
This is a small gift for us. Also, his booking agent, his dad, longtime youth worker and social worker, Jeremy Faumuina, is in the audience. But yeah, Cooper Gibbs on Instagram. One more time for Cooper.
Cooper.
Who was organised and registered for the book launch yesterday? Put your hands up. Did you have a good time at the book launch yesterday? Put your hands up. We are excited to have John come out and share some words with us shortly to acknowledge the launch of Ngā Tāhuhu Kōrero, Whanaketanga i Aotearoa, a history of youth work in Aotearoa, New Zealand. He is like a godfather of youth work, as we all know, and I'm going to read a caption on the back of this book before his amazing walkout song. Hoi anō, youth work in Aotearoa, New Zealand has a long, rich and unique history, from the relational approaches of tangata whenua and the youth organisations that formed at the end of the 19th century to the evolution of positive youth development and bicultural practice. Advances in the sector reflect the changing values and needs of this place and its young people over time. In Whanaketanga i Aotearoa Ngā Tāhuhu Kōrero, John Harrington writes from years of experience to track the forces shaping youth work in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Through compelling stories and key milestones, this book captures the passion, purpose and dedication of the youth work sector. Whether you are a student, youth worker, policy maker, or someone interested in the history of Aotearoa, this book, the first of its kind, makes for essential reading. Can we please put our hands together for the godfather of youth work, John Harrington.
We just have the music. Well, it shows that music is everlasting. So I think Junior's meant to have some questions to yell out, and I'm meant to give away 5 books. So yeah, so some of you probably don't even know who I am because you haven't been in youth work for very long. So I feel old. I've been in the sector for 47 years. So some of you probably weren't even born when I first started youth work. But yeah, this book is, last night at the book launch was really a special occasion, and I was really honoured. And this has been a 10-year work in progress. I started writing this in 2015 and finished it it was printed 2 weeks ago. So yeah, and it's just nice to be able to have it launched here and have an opportunity for everyone here to buy the book if they want to. So the book is going to be for sale at the Aratorohi store, and I'll be there to sign them if you want me to. I thought about last night, I'd hate to be a celebrity. I signed about 30 books last night, and yeah, I'm glad I'm not a celebrity. I don't want to say too much more about the book. Read it, and thank you, Junior, for reading up the back of the book. I think it was a nice way of describing what's in this book. I've had a lot of people support me to write this book. I haven't just written it on my own, and I thanked them last night. In the room last night, there were some incredible people who have been in youth work for many years, and I've had the privilege to work with them. And I suppose the challenge for this sector is who's going to write the next history of youth work in Aotearoa, New Zealand. It won't be me, because I'll probably be horizontal. So yeah, there's a challenge for someone. But yeah, so we've got 5 questions. Junior is going to come out and read them out, and you'll have to put your hand up and you'll get a free book if you answer the question right. The questions are about my book, so if someone's already had a sneak preview from last night, they should know the answer to the questions.
All right. The first person to put their hand up, if you started working with young people last century. The crowd goes wild. It was that one right back there. Yes. Do you want this book? You have to run down the aisle if you want the... Oh, yes, this is the energy we need. Woo. Still running, and you've been in youth work since last century. I want to see the run back up. Tēnā.
Let's have a round of applause.
There he goes. Piki mai ngā horonuku.
Pātai number 2, what year did the National Youth Workers Network Aotearoa run a nationwide run show called Let's Not Be Uncode, discussing ethical issues that fed into the formation of the Formal Code of Ethics? 2007. Yes.
Oi, you are exactly right.
Please come on down.
Should we have some music for them while they run down? Yee-hee. Hey. All right, Pātai Tuatoru. Name one of the pre-colonial, traditional, indigenous approaches to youth work. Hey. Yee. Pūkengatanga. Everybody say pūkengatanga. Yes. Another one was urungatanga. Everybody say urungatanga.
Urungatanga.
And another one was wharewānanga. Everybody say wharewānanga.
Wharewānanga.
Yes, they were mentioned in the Hei Tiki Tiki research project that was put out by Te Ora Hau, and I just happened to be wearing the Te Ora Hau t-shirt. Couple of props for Te Ora Hau.
We probably wouldn't endorse this today, but Pātai number 4, did John Harrington ever buy young people cigarettes?
Oh, there were too many.
Oh,
too many.
here
There we go. Yes. The question is, has Jordan ever given young people cigarettes? Hey, youth work has improved over time. Pātai whakamutunga, youth work has shifted from a deficit focus towards what kind of approach? Strengths-based. There she was. Hey. Positive youth development and strengths-based. And it's the book in my hand. Right, if anybody would like to purchase a book, they are the cheapest that they are ever going to be right here and right now. So you need to go and buy one today. Instead of being $35, they're going to be $20 plus GST. And you can get it signed by yours truly. Everybody goes, yay. Everybody goes, yeehaw.
Thank you.
Let's give it up one more time for John. Matua John.
Me pēnei pēr te kōrero, e kai kāna te ngākau, ki te rongo i ngā kōrero ka whakapuakina e tēnei tokorua. Tēnei tokorua kua rongo nui i ngā tautata nei, i a rāua mahi, hei hāpai i te tiriti o Waitangi, hei wero anō hoki i ngā ture o tēnei whenua. Hoi anō, nōku te maringa nui, nōku te waimaria, ki te whakatau i tēnei tokorua e kauwhau atu nei kia tātou i tēnei ata. Me ki, kei te kauhautia, te rongo pai. It is my absolute privilege to welcome this duo who are going to not come out here and entertain us, but they are going to come out here and awaken us and remind us of some knowing that we have unfortunately left to the side. They're going to return that knowing back to the deepest and most meaningful place that it needs to be. I'm excited to welcome a whanaunga, no muri whenua tēnei, no muri whenua ia. He uri tēnei no te taitokerau, no te hiku o te ika, ko te au pauri, ko ngā puhi. He pānga anō hoki ki Waikato, ki te whānau Āpanui. Became very, very famous around the time of the hikoi, not so long ago. Isn't it interesting that in our short history, we continue to have hikoi in our nation? But we are lucky to have people like this who can communicate effectively and bring us into a place of understanding. We also have his counterpart, who is not only Māori, not only Ngāti Porou, but also Canadian. And she brings a perspective that assists our rangatahi and our communities in understanding the political climate of our nation. Can you please give an unprecedented welcome to this duo who are here to awaken us this morning. Homai te paki paki. Eru rāua ko Rihanna. Paki paki mai e te iwi.
Hey, teach me how to twerk it. Hey, let's go. What? Can you teach me how to twerk it? You know why? 'Cause all the girls love me. All I need is a beat that's super bumpin'. And for you to back it up and dump it. Get it. Put your arms out front, lean side to side. They gon' be on you when they see you hit that.
That's a running joke, by the way, that we have on our Instagram. Ree called me out a little while ago. I used to be a dancer, and then she released to the world that there's a video somewhere on YouTube of me and my brothers doing a dougie at my cousin's house. And in case you're wondering, yeah, I still got it. Anyway, anei Ree.
Tēnā koutou, mōrena. Sorry, can we please go back a couple slides? Oh, do we control it? Oh. Okay, well, tēnā koutou, ko Reana te Ngāhui tōku ingoa. I am the second part of Ochu, which is a kaupapa me and Eru started to try to help educate people on kind of some key kaupapa to do with the Treaty of Waitangi and more political stuff. I've also made a few videos on TikTok explaining different political kaupapa going on and have had a fair bit of engagement from rangatahi, so I think that might be why I got invited today. So thanks for having me. Last year when I was 26, I was having my mid-20s life crisis, and I was thinking, oh nah, I'm done with commercial law, I want to be a youth worker. So I put my resignation into the commercial law firm I was at and applied for about 10 different youth worker roles and got not a single email back, no interviews. And so I looked at my CV and it said commercial law, you know, mergers and acquisitions, trust deed reviews, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe it doesn't really seem like I'd be a good youth worker. If only I could get in front of them and say, hey, I could be good with kids. So any jobs? Yeah, so the kaupapa that me and Edu are going to talk about today, I got asked a few weeks ago to speak at a labour union kaupapa. I said, oh, I'm not too sure exactly what you want me to talk about. And they said, can you discuss the recent legislative changes and their link to the broader neoliberal agenda? And I went, oh, no, sweet. What is the broader neoliberal agenda? No, but that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today, is basically the position of the youth sector as collateral damage in the political game of football. But I'm not too sure if we're able to go back a few slides. Eh? Oh yeah, there we go.
Cool.
Yeah, next one. So yeah, the first half of this kōrero is going to be about the youth sector and its position as collateral damage. So this idea of neoliberalism was quite new to me before I started beefing on TikTok with David Seymour. Oh, thanks guys. But honestly, like, seeing his stuff really made me go, what is this guy all about? I really need to figure, to me to argue against something, I really have to understand what I'm arguing against. So it really motivated me to go and figure out kind of what his political ideology is. And it took me to neoliberalism, which is, can we please go? Oh yeah. So neoliberalism is like a political idea that's kind of global and is really, really prominent in like the United States. And it's the idea basically that you have to believe in these three ideas to really get behind neoliberalism. So the first idea is that all we need is economic growth. All the problems with our world is all because we don't have enough economic growth. And if we could just get productivity up, companies make more profits, everyone would get paid more and the world would be better. So that's the first kind of founding idea behind neoliberalism. The second one is that regulations are just hoha, and by regulations I mean laws, rules, bylaws, any kind of things that put restrictions on companies or businesses in the way they work. So basically those are just hoha, they just get in the way. And then the third one is that everyone has the same opportunities. So that's the idea that in this new world, we don't have racist laws anymore. We don't have laws that say Māori can go here and Pākehā can go here and those kind of things. All the laws are equal now. Everyone should have equal treatment and therefore everyone has the same opportunity to crack it, basically. Can I go next one, please? So where the youth sector fits into this neoliberal ideology is basically that under all we need is economic growth, is this idea that productivity is what's holding us back. All we need to do is help companies make bigger profits, and then everyone's wages go up and we can fix all the problems in our society. The problem is that productivity hasn't plummeted. Productivity has stagnated, which means it hasn't continued growing on the path that it was. The reason that's a problem, or pokes a hole, I guess, in this idea of neoliberalism, is that our living standards have plummeted. My parents' generation could buy a house for $30,000 kind of thing, and we look at the cost of houses now, and we know that wages have plummeted compared to the prices of houses. So if living standards and the cost of living and all of those kind of things was linked with productivity, it would have plummeted in the same way that living standards have. So logically, it doesn't make sense to say that our problem is just productivity, because otherwise our living standards would have stagnated as well, and it would have just stayed about that level. The second kind of main idea is this idea of trickle-down economics, which means if you let companies get richer, they're going to start paying their staff more, and basically everyone's going to feel the positive effects of letting companies get richer. But that's been the idea behind all of our kind of company law for 40 plus years, and we haven't seen it happen. And it's almost proven it is proven in the economics field that trickle-down economics doesn't work, and yet still after 40 years of pushing the same idea, we still have people saying, all we need to do is boost our productivity. So where this looks, and the last part is, where does economic growth come from? So there's this idea that if we let economic growth benefit people at the top, then it's going to trickle down, everyone's going to get better. But economic growth, quite logically, can't just sit at the top end. If we think about the fact that the economy and businesses and sales and productivity and profit depends on people buying stuff. You need people to be able to go out and buy clothes and to go to the movies and to get a new car. No one can afford to do that anymore. People are struggling, especially in the middle class. So sometimes parties like the ACT Party or the National Party think that the middle class struggling means that families can't afford to take their kids to the movies every week. But what it really means is there could be 2 working parents and they still can't afford to pay their bills. So we know that the problem is a lot bigger than just luxury stuff. And so this idea of economic growth, if we say that we just need to let the top get richer, that top part is tiny. The people that hold most of the wealth in New Zealand is a tiny, tiny group. They can never spend enough money to stimulate the economy. There's not enough of them. What we really need is for our middle and our lower class, basically we need to get rid of the classes and we need everybody to have a living wage. But if everyone has the power to spend, that's what stimulates our economy. And we know, we've actually seen this in practice. So in 2008, when there was the global financial crisis, countries around the world went into recession and everybody was struggling, except Australia. So the Australian government borrowed $52 billion as a stimulus, kind of what we did in COVID, and gave out cash payments to low and middle class families. And this cash payment stimulated the Australian economy, and they were considered the best country in terms of getting through the global financial crisis. And so we know that giving the general population the power to spend is what actually saves the economy, not by just letting that top end crack it. Anything to add, bro? He's going to do the second half. And so how we see this played out in the youth sector is different kinds of legislation like the Fair Pay Agreements Repeal Act. So getting rid of fair pay for people that do this kind of mahi. Privatising the youth sector. So if the idea is that all we need to do is let companies get richer, following that line of thought, we want companies to do everything. We want companies to run our hospitals. We want companies to run our prisons. We want companies to run our social work. And so this idea of privatising the youth sector is about cost efficiency, spending the least amount of money possible on people in need. And the flow-on effect of this is that I read this article from 2016 that was about neoliberalism in the youth sector, and they talked about the fact that anybody who practices youth work or social work or works in the youth sector knows that the thing that makes the difference is relationships and being able to invest in relationships with people, and that is actually what changes outcomes. If the entire purpose of investing in the youth sector is cost efficiency, the only logical answer is that it will centre around box ticking, cost-efficient box ticking with no time for proper relationships, which I know everyone in this room will already be well aware of. The next part is that regulations are just hoha, so regulations just hold companies back. This idea is that neoliberalism says we just need to peel the rules off companies. Once we do that, they can maximise their profits, pull wages up, and everything will be better. How this looks in practice is repealing things like the smoke-free laws, which were about curbing the sale of tobacco and nicotine. And yep, absolutely, the smoke-free laws were holding companies back. They were holding tobacco companies back. But the flip side to that is that that was saving our youth. We know that youth are the people that suffer from smoking addictions. And so being able to pull companies back and into line to protect our youth, that's the purpose of that regulation. We want that regulation because that helps the health of our people. But from a neoliberal perspective, it's just getting in the way. Get rid of that law because it's holding our companies back. Another example is the ECE reforms. So basically saying we're spending too much money on our babies. It's costing too much. We need to make it a lot more cost efficient. We don't want our early childhood teachers to be getting all this extra resourcing and training, and we don't need it. And then the perfect example of what happens when you peel the rules off companies is our supermarket industry. They were not regulated enough when it came to merging. So about 20 years ago, we had a bunch of different supermarket chains and they all started smushing together. The effect of that is that now we have two jumbo companies that basically control our whole grocery industry. They only compete with each other, they price match, and everybody is paying for it. We're all paying for it with how much our groceries are costing. So the supermarket industry is the exact example of what happens when you peel the rules off companies. And then the third one is that everyone has the same opportunities. So one of the founding ideas of neoliberalism is that because all the laws apply equally, everyone has the same opportunity. It doesn't matter how you grew up. It doesn't matter whether or not you inherited a $5 million property portfolio or not. Everyone has the same opportunities now. And the kind of following that line of thought, if you have the same opportunities, if you don't crack it, that just means you weren't good enough. That's all that means. You just needed to work harder, you needed to be in the right place at the right time, and basically it's your fault. And this idea plays out in how they treat our vulnerable people. So when we look at the Section 7AA repeal, anyone that works in the oranga tamariki space will know that Section 7AA was designed to help Māori children in care and basically try to address the different outcomes. They didn't like that because it identified Māori as different. They want a blanket approach for everyone, and so if Māori children end up being overrepresented in the oranga tamariki space, that's their fault. It's not anyone else's fault, it's not the law's fault, there's no systemic problems, you just weren't good enough to get out of it. The youth justice boot camps, we know that that's the blame game. These kids are just naughty, they just need to be punished harder, we need to scare them into line. That's the idea of individual fault, everything is individualised. And then the emergency housing policy. We're wasting too much money on people that don't have safe housing. It's just costing too much, we need to slash it and they need to figure themselves out. That's the idea behind the neoliberal agenda. So the way that I see it is that the youth sector gets used as a political football all the time. And when I came out of uni, you know, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and really excited about politics and thinking it was going to be awesome, in my mind there were some things that would be untouchables, you know, that every political party would agree, this is something we all have to collectively work on to fix. To me, the youth sector should be number one on that list. Vulnerable children, children that need support, to me that's a non-negotiable. If you're getting into politics and you're not thinking, how do we protect our vulnerable children? What are you there for? And then when I grew up and, you know, the rose-coloured glasses came off, you realise that the youth sector for some political parties is just a burden. It's got nothing to do with supporting, it's just something they have to do to get it out of the way. So in terms of what I see as the pathway moving forward, I think it's really helpful to really understand what we're fighting against, because I think when I first started making TikToks, it was all about Section 7AA. That was what racked me up. And but I look back now at the way I was arguing about it, and it was about the specifics and about the fact that people didn't really know what the section did. But now I know the ACT Party absolutely knew what it did. They didn't care because it was only a tiny little drop in the bucket of the direction that they're going in. And so to me, understanding the direction they're going in and understanding the different parts of their political ideology makes it easier to argue against. If we can say, we know that you're saying everyone has the same opportunities, but you're wrong, and we know that you're pushing us this way, but we're going to collectively mobilise and educate and activate people to know what you're doing. because they do everything in the sneakiest way possible, trying to hide under, racist and transphobic and all of these different kind of things. They use those to hide and push this under the radar. But if we're able to just pull those distractions off and still fight for those meaningful kaupapa while also knowing it's heading this way and take control of the whole direction and move it back where we want to go. To me, that's the best way to do it. But yeah, that's my yapping. Thank you. Your turn. No.
We could shift along to the, but also, yeah, building on this amazing kōrero from Ree, something to be hyper aware of, I think, is this neoliberalism system, which, let's be honest, neoliberalism is just a code word for racism. This system has been here not even 200 years. Right? And our history of tangata whenua, of being tangata whenua in Aotearoa, is about 1,000 years. Our history across Te Moana Nui a Kiwa, you can add another 3,000 years to that. So though neoliberalism, this system that was plonked here roughly 200 years ago, and that allows for a very tiny amount of people to hold most of the wealth, money, property in Aotearoa, it's a new thing. It's a new idea, according to tikanga Māori and Te Ao Māori. And I always refer to some of the accounts of the earliest rangatira Māori who navigated outside of Te Moana Nui a Kiwa and went to places like London, Sydney, New South Wales, all around the world. Those rangatira being the likes of Te Pahi, also Ruatara, Moehanga, Hongi, Waikato, all of these leaders of Māori communities of hapu that travelled around the world, around about late 1700s, early 1800s. And these rangatira Māori, the first thing that they noticed and they were shocked over when travelling and visiting these other worlds, I guess, for the first time in their lives, they saw what poverty looked like. They saw what inequality looks like, what neoliberalism looks like. A system where people are homeless, most are pohara, but there are still a small minority who call themselves kings, queens, leaders, lords, as they were known in Britain, who had all of the wealth, had all the property, had slaves, had peasants, and were living rich lives, I guess. At the same time, most of the people in their sphere of influence were suffering. And those stories are important. Those truths are important for us to talk about as regularly as possible, and that's why I always bring up this kōrero at basically every event that I speak at, because those aren't the stories I was told growing up about my tupuna, about the world that they lived in. And within those stories is the truth that the world that my tupuna lived in was a world, obviously, where there was no such thing as poverty, right? If they were shocked for the first time seeing poverty in the early 1800s, that tells us the hundreds of years before that, Aotearoa was a place where everyone got a kai, everyone had a place to live. There was no need for a youth sector, right, or a youth development ministry, right? Even that in itself, if we're being super critical, is problematic. And I'm not being disparaging or hara tēnei te takahi o koutou mana, because ko koutou ngā rangatira, and yous are doing the real mahi. But really, if you look at the whakapapa of the youth sector, this idea of youth development, it comes out of this neoliberal Western way of thinking that isolates youth and then frames them as a problem to be fixed because they're youth, right? Because they're young, because they're stupid, because they're silly, te mea. And that idea, that mentality, has a very long history that spans all the way back to Britain, and actually was one of the threads that allowed the British Empire to be the biggest and meanest empire in the world for a very long time. And so, yeah, I guess building on that history, so that fella James Cook got here about 200 years ago-ish, and he brought this system with him. Let's be clear, James Cook didn't travel here for a holiday. Right? He didn't come here to get a tan, even though if you want to get a tan, you go to the far north. That's where he landed, well, and the East Coast as well. Tainawhiti, that's where he first landed, and then eventually ka hau te rongo ki runga o te taitokerau taku kāinga tērā. But he wasn't there for a holiday. He wasn't there to socialise or to get pics for his gram. No, he had very clear instructions. He was there on a science expedition, but the British Empire at that time, science to them, and probably still is to a significant extent, was just another tool of colonization to justify conquering the lands of natives, right? So he was under clear instructions to find some information, data, some science stuff, blah, blah, blah. But while you're out there, if you find any land that no one's living on, take it for the British Empire. And that's what happened to our whanaunga in Australia, because from James Cook's perspective and his people's perspectives, they weren't qualified to be humans, right? They weren't, according to the British perspective, humans. Therefore, the land that they were living on was uninhabited by humans and was the reason why they were able to, well, by their justification, take that whenua. And so that attitude still is the foundation of the system that Rihanna is talking about. This idea that the British way or the Western way is the right way. And the British Empire was basically saw themselves as like the apex of civilization, and that it was like their moral duty to save all of the natives all around the world. And we're actually, still in amongst the consequences of that very toxic, racist, disgusting way of thinking today. And that's what actually holds this whole system up. And the reason why we did a big hikoi in November last year. So this is the importance of conscientizing and activating our people and the means in which we do that. So if we could, Neke ki te mea. Ka pai. So in terms of the hikoi mō te tiriti, which is just the continuation of this legacy of coming up 50 years of hikoi as a form of resistance for te iwi Māori, beginning with the hikoi whenua almost 50 years ago, foreshore and seabed 20 years ago, and funnily enough, just this week, the government, Minister Paul Goldsmith, has announced basically to undo all of the gain that hikoi 20 years ago influenced and pushed. Ka nui te pauri, e tangi ana te ngako I runga I tērā āhuatanga. And to be honest, last year when we were preparing to do this hikoi mō te tiriti, my thinking was, oh man, not another hikoi, you know? Do we really have to do this? And my thinking right now is my son, Te Ngarahu, I hope he doesn't have to do a hikoi one day, because that means we're still resisting, we're still fighting, and the system is still standing. It's still very important, and it's still a way that we can invoke the power of our people and activate the rangatira that lives inside all of us. But it is still very system-focused. And I think it's important for the new generation, ngā rangatahi, to shift kind of the focus to reimagining and creating our own futures, and we just go on a hikoi to get our steps in as opposed to resisting a system. Anyway, so this is something that I learned though, and I'm continually developing my learning of this, but during the hikoi, beforehand and afterwards in my reflections, these are the kind of things that I learned about how to reach and touch the hearts and minds, I guess, of the people that you kind of want to take part in your kaupapa. Social media, I'll talk about that a bit soon, and yeah, of course, koia te tapu o te wā. I guess this is the contemporary tool in which we can share information. But before even thinking about media and the means by which you share your kōrero, the biggest thing I learned is the importance of messaging. Messaging and the tone of that messaging, the way in which ka kākahu koe ngā kōrero. So it's the way in which you kind of frame your kōrero of your kaupapa in a way where you're truly living out kotahitanga. Kotahitanga as in inclusion. Kotahitanga as in inviting. Kotahitanga as in bringing everyone on the journey and making them feel like they are They're not part of the journey, but they are the journey. And that we're all the journey together. So that's just kind of how I frame it in my mind. How tō kaupapa, right? How tō kaupapa. What do you want to say? And kaupapa can mean so many things all at once in Te Ao Māori. We talk about te kaupapa being this big thing about, I guess, our livelihood and liberation. We talk about ngā kaupapa being like this, he kaupapa tēnei. It's a foundation, it's a philosophy, it's a thought, it's a belief, it's all of these things. But the way in which we kind of express kaupapa is through our kupu, our kōrero, and what you want to say. And kaupapa comes from i roto nei. So what you want to say, ko te kaupapa tērā, and then thinking about manawa, how you want people, well, whose manawa you want to engage and activate, and then how you want their manawa, the seat of their emotions, to feel. What kind of emotions, feelings, truths are you trying to invoke in sharing your kaupapa? And then kaupapa, I think, is always linked to some sort of action and mahi. So then thinking about how te tinana, the manifestation, physical manifestation of the kaupapa once you've kind of framed the messaging. So I think this is the most important step. If you're a youth, if you're working with rangatahi, working with different communities, and you're in the position as a communicator, this would be, I guess, my rudimentary advice around communicating you, where you're at, where your kaupapa is at, what your mahi is, what your goal is, and always ensuring that ka hore koe e kōrero ana ki te mātenga o te tangata, e kōrero ana koe ki tana manawa. And I think it's actually a very Māori thing. You're speaking to the wairua of the person, the ngākau of the person, not just speaking to the top 2 inches. Because we know that especially this type of mahi, this ain't top 2 inches mahi. This is wairua stuff. This affects whānau through generations. And we shouldn't be shy, because especially in kind of public sector, which I've worked in for a very tiny amount of time because I couldn't handle it really, but we're told to step away from our emotions, to step away from our politics, whatever those are, to be apolitical, to be ahuman, right? To basically cut off all your emotion and like you can't be your true authentic self in your mahi. But especially with this kind of mahi, that is literally like life or death for a lot of our whānau. He mea nui tērā. So messaging before media, because that's kind of a thing that I've seen as well with a lot of like entities that are trying to be hip, trying to be cool for the youth, all of that, and they jump straight into social media, right? And they think that's going to fix all their problems. It ain't. The problem from the outset was your messaging was off, right? Because social media is just a tool. And if you're using social media to share basically like out-of-touch messaging, shit messaging, like James Meagher's speech last night, so I heard. Whoops. Whoops, there it is. Anyway, like, you know, social media ain't going to fix that, bro. Like, it ain't, right? So, yeah, so it's like, okay, kei hea hau. Where am I at? Where's the kaupapa at? What's the kōrero? What's the wairua side of it? I te mea he iwi wairua tātou. So koia tērā. Mea nui, ko te āhua o tō kaupapa o kōrero. If we can shift along, please. And then social media, regardless of what I just said, is still a powerful tool. There are certainly still risks with social media, problems with it, who runs the platforms, different kind of types of regulation as well that are building around different social media platforms. Yeah, it's definitely got its stuff, its issues, but it is basically at the moment as a people's media kind of probably the most accessible, usable thing at this point in time. And it's pushed movements all over the world. Probably some of the most kind of like the originators, I guess, of this, the use of this tool, Black Lives Matter movement, was like one of probably the leading examples globally on how to push political messaging. And then today, with the Free Palestine movement, to, queer. And in terms of really calling out this genocide that's happening in Gaza, social media, you can see, is the only place that's really holding that truth, right? Because mainstream media is either silent about it or complicit, or both, right? And so we as people who have been minoritized, where our messaging's been radicalized, we kind of have nowhere else to go but social media as a means of putting our message out there to the world. And without social media, there's no way we would have got the turnout to Te Hikoi Mō Te Tiriti that we did get. And it also meant that we could hold the narrative and we could have our own sort of story sovereignty and our own messaging sovereignty, our own rangatiratanga as to how we put the message out there. And we could silence out accusations of being extremist Māori who want to start a revolution. That's next year. No. And then it also meant that we could frame the kōrero in a way that everyone could feel welcome and part of the kaupapa. And that's why, heaps of Māoris turned up, and heaps of tangata tiriti turned up as well. Tangata moana, tauiwi katoa, puta noa who saw and felt connected to and part of the kaupapa and the messaging. So that was again, linking back to the learnings before in terms of the messaging being so important. And if we truly mean what we say when we're talking about kotahitanga, then we have to adapt our kōrero, our positioning in that way. And to even humble ourselves. I think, and there's some hot takes, but anyway, I think a lot of us almost get, particularly in kind of, there are some people who probably let their ego kind of convince them that there's no need to change how they message, change how they communicate ideas, and that everyone should just, they're the problem, not me, But if we really mean what we say, if we see ourselves as leaders in our communities and our mahi, then we have to criticize ourselves and look inward and be honest and say, wow, like what I've been doing hasn't been working. Like, I wonder why that is. And be critical about our messaging because otherwise it's just fake kotahitanga. And to be honest, there's a lot of that happening at the moment. Fake kotahitanga. Talking about it, talking about, oh, we need to bring everyone on the journey, but not actually adjusting what the waka looks like, right? For people to actually get on that journey. Not providing a seat or a space on the waka for everyone. And building a waka that everyone is attracted to and feels like they can safely sit on and be a part of. It's still important to hold on to the core values of the kaupapa. Those will never change. But to bring Uncle, who's on smoko, into the kaupapa, then we have to expand outward of what we're already doing. Uncle ain't going to read no fucking thesis. He ain't going to read, if I write a thesis, if Rihanna writes a thesis, Uncle ain't going to read that, right? Auntie who's busy running kohanga ain't going to read that, right? And we can't just operate, again, as neoliberals from the top and expect all our kazis to just fall in line. That's bullshit. That's not how kotahitanga works. Kotahitanga, tātou katoa, kei runga, i tētahi marae kotahi. Right? Marae kotahi. And the traditional, actually what a marae is, tuturu nei. We talk about marae as being the complex now with the whare, everything. But tuturu, the marae, is the empty space in front of the whare. Right? And that is kotahitanga, right there, kiau. Koia te piki te o te kotahitanga. There's no hierarchy there. There's no elitism there on the marae. Everyone on the marae is equal. Everyone has mana and everyone has tapu. And I think our role in this building this kind of social marae and being the marae ourselves is to connect and be genuine about kotahitanga. Rangatahi mai, kaumātua mai, mokopuna mai, tātou katoa o Aotearoa mai, koia tēnei ko te marae, hei oranga ki a tātou. And to tie it all back to my favourite talking points, Hakaputanga and Te Tiriti o Waitangi, I see these two documents as being the waharoa to this marae, the entry point to this marae. So 1835, a few of my tūpuna had some huis up north, and then they created Hakaputanga, our Declaration of Sovereignty. Now that was the first po in the ground to tell the world that we are the sovereign people here. The second po 5 years later was Te Tiriti o Waitangi, which said we're still the sovereign people here, and the land is still sovereign, but we are allowing tauiwi mā to come here, to come onto our marae and live here and call this place home. But we know if you're on the marae, you have to respect the tikanga of that marae. And so as we welcome, but also remind ourselves of what our tikanga is, what that tupuna world looked like about 200 years ago, I think that is the koia tērā ko te pikitia nui o te kotahitanga kia maranga tātou ki runga ki tēnei marae, ka puta ki te ora, ka puta ki te whaiao, ka puta ki te ao marama. Hoi anō, mihi ana kia tātou ngā kaiwhakarite i tēnei kaupapa, ngā tangi kōrero, ngā tangi tikanga, those who have created this marae, tēnei wāhi kōrero, the safe space, I want to acknowledge you all, no māua te whiwhi kia tai mai ki kone. Kua nā wāku kōrero. Hoi anō, if there are any pātai or whakaro, hena, tuku mai, still got a little bit of time.
Just quickly, if you're wondering why Eru's so good at speaking, you can YouTube him, and there's a video of him when he's 17 doing a TED talk on youth suicide rates in the north. So he's really been about this life.
Not me.
If there's no pātai, then there's one more slide with a couple of things on it.
Oh, that's right.
So when we were talking about kōrero and messaging and all of those kind of things, these are two kōrero that I've come up against quite often. No one cares, and that's too smart for me. And a lot of people ask me, how do you get people to care about this kind of stuff? I have absolutely no idea. There is a group in my mind that genuinely does not care. They don't want to hear about it, they don't want to spend any of their time learning about it, and that's that group. But the group that I was targeting with my TikToks was the people that are on the fence. They would like to care, but they don't have enough information. They're kind of sitting there going, oh, what's this hikoi about? Like the video that I made about the Treaty Principles Bill was in response to a South Waikato farmer who had put up a video saying, what are people going on a hikoi for? And so I responded to that, knowing that this guy was someone who might care if he had a little bit more information, but he needed to get there. So to me, that's the group to target. People, because I might be naive again, but in my mind, most people is a good person. Most people, if they knew this is going to impact our vulnerable children, they're not going to be pro it. Might be naive, but I'm, been all right so far. So that's the way I approach everything, is that if you only knew that this is how it worked, then you'd be on board. And then the other kōrero, that's too smart for me. I get that all the time, and people saying, oh, thank you for dumbing this down. I don't think I've dumbed anything down at all. The way I think about it is like, I have no idea how the scoring of a golf game works. That doesn't make me dumb. I'm just happy to drive the cart while my cousins play. But if someone were to explain to me really quickly how the scoring of a golf game works, I'd be like, oh, cool, that's awesome. And that, in my mind, is what me and Eru try to do with a lot of these kaupapa, is just give the tools to understand how it works. It doesn't make anybody less smart, it's just something they haven't encountered before. Yeah.
Well,
I te tuatahi mihi kia kōrua, mo tō kōrero I kōrero hia. I've got a pātai for you. The Westminster system that our country is governed by, do you think it's our future? Or is there another way? And if there is another way, what is the other way?
Oh, you've opened Edu's can of worms. Take it away.
Short answer, fuck no. As I said, this Westminster system, as it stands, was never meant to exist in the first place. As it stands and as it controls Māori communities, Māori lives, that was never part of the plan from Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Te Tiriti o Waitangi allowed the British Crown to build a government here to control settler people, not tangata whenua people. They quickly, the kōrero from Patu Hohepa, kara tā Patu Hohepa, ki hai maroke, te hinu ki te pepa o Te Tiriti o Waitangi ka tīmata te rā weke weke I ngā kōrero. The ink had not yet dried on Te Tiriti o Waitangi, and Hobson's people were already changing the intent and purpose of that document. So quickly after 1840, this government was built, 1853. That's actually a pretty fast time to build a government that controlled Māori communities and settler communities, and guess what? It's the same government that exists today. So that was never the intention, and Keo is not our future. In terms of, I guess, hey, our pair here, the how of kind of recreating, reimagining our future, tuatahi ko te consciousness o te rā mea. And as Ree was saying before, we've been made to feel dumb and like we're not good enough for certain bits of information. And the other thing is, a lot of our truths have been overcomplicated and radicalized. So the truth is, and the Waitangi Tribunal itself has confirmed this truth that our mai tupuna have held for a long time, is that we never ceded sovereignty, we never gave away our mana in 1840, right? That's a fact, that's a fact. Just like if I said the sky is blue, right? Those are two undisputable facts. Never ceded sovereignty in 1840, the sky is blue. If I go out in public in certain communities, maybe Christchurch, and I say, don't get me started on what happened at the airport last night with this guy. Anyway, leave that there. So if I go out and say, mai tupuna never ceded sovereignty in 1840, oh, that guy's a radical, right? Even though that's actually normal, right? A fact is normal, fact is plain, fact is what it is. But our truth has been radicalized. And that's intentional, because it weakens our position, I guess. Either that, or we just don't even have access to the information so we can calculate in our head, oh shit, our tupuna never gave away their mana, right? And so I think that's the first step, is to normalize what is already normal, our truth, and to share our kōrero in a way that's accessible and actually as simple as it is, because it's not that complicated. It's very straightforward. Kei roto i ngā kōrero, ko ia tērā, and then from there, then it becomes a reality to reform, to transform, and build a system that is embedded in tikanga Māori, te ao Māori, but is not just good for Māori, good for everyone, good for Aotearoa, which was the original intention of Te Tiriti.
I'm so surprised you did that in less than half an hour.
Kia ora, big fan. Sorry, I was a bit fangirling when you came out. I had a kōrero with one of the girls that did our mana tāohi session last year, and it just came to me before, and how we talk about mana tāohi, and that all tāohi have mana and everyone. Mana motake has mana and things like that. My question is, for people on that side of the story, do you think they have mana, and where that mana comes from, or if they still hold it in their hearts? And if they don't, can they get that back, and how would they get that back? Like, because I know mana isn't something you can give and go, but do you think they have mana, or mana inside them?
Can you specify who they is again? I don't know.
Do I have to? Act!
Marama.
Nah, you go.
Te whakapono a ngā tupuna, everyone has mana, everyone has tapu. In your own lifetime, you can either do things to enhance that, or maybe kind of bring it down a few notches. That's up to you. But at your core, you live and die, you're born with your mana and you die with your mana. Koe tērā, ko te tikanga Māori. Whether that immediately qualifies you to be a rangatira of your community, again, that's dependent on what you do, how you are, your values, your philosophies. But everyone has an opportunity to, as I said before, kind of grow your mana, but you also, mana can be vulnerable sometimes if you're acting in ways that is not good for your community, the people that live on your marae and your sphere of influence, ka ahua pāheke tō mana. But I think I've read some kōrero from James Baldwin. He's a bit of a hero of mine, actually, in terms of crafting kōrero, but also his whakaaro on liberation and how and I've kind of used that in my own like maturing and thinking. When we are liberating ourselves as tangata whenua, and we also have to, and this is kind of like ironic and a little bit frustrating, but it is what it is, and it's the truth. We also have to liberate our oppressors in the same movement, in the same motion, in the same kaupapa. And in our liberation, we must be careful not to become and emulate the oppressor ourselves. And so, what is that? Yeah, and it takes a lot of aroha and a lot of, and it can be awkward. It's like, I don't want to do that. But that's the burden that we have as tangata whenua, and that's the obligation, and also the thing that only we are capable of doing as tangata whenua. And in saving Aotearoa and the world. Indigenous ways of thinking will save this world. And we have to bring our oppressors along with us and say to them, look, even through all of the bullshit, you can have a feed, you can come on the marae. Right? Because why? Because we're rangatira people.
Hikoi ki te pāre mata, hikoi mo te kaupapa, toitu te tiriti, toitu te reo Māori, toitu te mana motu hake, au e ha. You heard it here, guys. We need to serve the oppressor. We need to bring them into te ao marama. Hey, it's not like we don't have enough going on. We've got to do that too. Oh, what an awesome kōrero. The crowd definitely were right there with you. The messaging, the distilling of information to keep it comprehensible and, graspable was absolutely awesome. Appreciated your time and your energy. E mihi nui ana ki a kaurua. E whakapeto ngoi ki runga i nei kaupapa. E ora ai te iwi Māori, e ora ai ngā iwi take o te ao. E ora ai tēnei motu whānui e kia nei ko Aotearoa. Hoi anō. E mihi ana tēnā kōrua, tēnā kōrua, tēnā kōrua.
Ora, ka mihi. Tēnei ngā pū, tēnei ngā manuti hei rauti o ngā puhi e oharau. E atu o kei roto nānai tiko ake ki ngā roa koko kei. I te rangi i te rangi e nei naha. Nei naha o haporo. Kora ko tēnei oto uro nei tiki oto i te kara upa ne kone piti kara Teina
Let's keep that applause coming as they exit the stage. Kia maura, ki te mana motu hake me te aroha. Kia maura, ki te mana motu hake me te aroha. E ia, ie, hakaro no tautoko. E ia, ie, hakaro no tautoko.
Kei te rongo I te wairua o ngā kōrero e mihi ana ki a koe e te whaia, tēnā koe, tēnā koe.
Ngā mihi whaia. If we could just have the lights dimmed to 50%, please, lighting crew. Let's have another round of applause for our awesome kōrero. And just if I can invite everyone, if we could invite everyone, would you indulge us, if you will, to just close your eyes for a couple of minutes as we still sit in that beautiful, vast space of everything that's been exchanged and that beautiful reminder of AI, our ancestral intelligence. And as we embark on our liberation mahi, we'd just like to invite you to just ruminate on the beautiful, the atahua kōrero that's just happened for a couple of minutes as Marlon ministers to us, to let that kupu sink and speak to your souls, and to invite what might come up in those ancient reminders.
All right, because we want to get involved with the person that's sitting next to us, could you just share one word about that last session with the person sitting next to you? Just one word. All right, so we have a couple of notices as we make our way to morning tea. I am not going to recap the 3 things because I think you have those 3 things on lock. So we'll park those ones over there. We want to give props to Praxis for the Connection Cafe. Yes, let's have some click fingers for that. If you have not taken a moment to express yourself, your feelings, your perspective, or your understanding of kotahitanga on one of the ribbons that would then be pinned to the waharoa, that is something that I want to encourage you to do before the end of today. Ka pai, waharoa, ribbon, oku whakaaro mo te kotahitanga, writing them on the ribbon, pinning them on the waharoa. Koira taku wero kia tātou. Kotahitanga being the theme of our hui, I just want to share a couple of words because they have turned up in my puku right here and right now. Everybody say me uru. Kahikatea.
Kahikatea.
Yeah, kahikatea is a type of tree, if you didn't know that. It's kind of like the New Zealand pine tree. But pine trees are colonizers. No. All right. The New Zealand pine tree. And those trees, they grow in not quite like hedges, but they grow in close proximity to each other. And underneath the ground, they look like they're their own tree, and they are their own tree in their own right. But underneath the ground, all of the roots are intertwined and connected, and they grow towards each other and connect under the ground. And so my wero to us, before we leave this conference, is that there are some roots, and an amount of involving each other in each other has occurred so that when we return to our homes or to our workplaces or to our communities, we still remain connected in that sense of kotahitanga. So everybody say me uru kahikatea.
Me uru kahikatea.
You've got to love Indigenous nations, who are observers of the natural world and take learnings from the natural world. Me uru kahikatea.
Malo, brother. The only notice from me is the beautiful Dr. Sue Bagshaw has asked if there are any doctors, nurses, practitioners in the house who are in the Youth One Stop Shop space. Please, if you can meet outside by the toys at lunchtime, should be keen to connect with you as a roku. So karakia mo te kai, given it's Kukiarani Language Week, let us pray. Te atuai, aka me taki mai te manga ta mātou kakai, e aka matutu tō mātou kopapa, kia ora mātou ia koe, āmene.
Āmine.
Karango nā te wai